Hey, my name is Wes Carter. I'm 31 years old. I run a two-bay garage on the edge of Cedar Hollow, Tennessee, a town small enough that people know whose truck is whose by the sound of the engine. The sign out front says Carter and Son. My father painted it himself. He's been gone 3 years and I've never changed it. That's most of what you need to know about me. The rest came out the night Danny Brooks stood in my backyard with 2 beers and the look on her face I've learned to be afraid of. Wes, she said, I'm going to say something. I need you to not be a coward about it. That's a bad way to start. My sister's here. I looked across the yard. Nora. I knew her the way you know someone's quieter sibling, from the edges of things. Danny's wedding, a few holidays, always near the fence, always the first to leave. She was standing by it now, a paper plate she wasn't eating from, brown hair behind her ears, a plain green dress, the kind of person your eyes pass over looking for someone louder. What about her? She never goes out. She's home with our mom every day and she's 28 and she acts like her life's already over. Danny took a breath. And you haven't been on a date since Dad Carter passed. Danny, I dare you to take her to dinner, one real date. She'd say no. Then let her say no, but you have to ask, that's the dare. She clinked her bottle against mine and walked away satisfied, leaving me by the grill like an idiot. If it had only been the dare, I'd have let it die. I was good at letting things die. But before I left, I watched Nora cross the yard to where her mother Lillian, who'd had a stroke 2 years back and walked with a cane, was struggling up from a low chair. Nora didn't make a production of it. She just appeared at her elbow, took her weight without being asked, said something that made Lillian laugh, and steadied her all the way to the car. Nobody else even noticed. It was the kind of thing you do 1,000 times until it's invisible. I walked over before I lost my nerve. Nora, I said. She turned, surprised to be addressed directly. This is going to come out wrong no matter how I say it. Your sister dared me to ask you to dinner. I almost didn't because that's a terrible reason. But I just watched you help your mom and I thought I'd actually like to take you to dinner. Forget the dare. That part's between me and Danny. The question's mine. She studied me the way you'd check a coin to see if it was real. Why? Because you look like the most interesting person at this whole party, and you spent the entire evening trying not to be seen. Something moved behind her eyes. She glanced toward the car. I'd have to find someone to sit with my mom. It's not simple. Most things worth doing aren't. She almost smiled. Friday, I can do Friday then. And Wes, I know it was a dare. I'm not fragile. You don't have to pretend it wasn't. It started as a dare, I said. Friday's mine. She arranged for Danny to sit with Lillian. She didn't tell me that until later. I found out because Danny called me Thursday morning and said, I don't know what you said at that party, but I'm babysitting my own mother tomorrow night, so good luck. I took her to the Blue Heron, a place down by the river where they grill catfish and the booths are older than both of us. I'd planned for an awkward hour, the way you plan for a flat tire. What I got was the easiest evening I'd had in 3 years. Nora was quiet, but I'd misread that quiet completely. It wasn't shyness, it was attention. She listened the way most people don't anymore, without waiting for her turn, and when she talked, it was worth waiting for. Dry, sideways funny, the kind that sneaks up on you. She noticed our waitress was new and nervous and went out of her way to be easy on her. She noticed I lined up my silverware when I was thinking. You do that when you're working something out, she said. My dad did the same thing. Garage habit. Everything in its place or you lose the small screw that holds the whole thing together. Tell me about yours, she said. The garage. So I did. Told her about the sign, about my father teaching me to read engines and people with the same patience. About the back office I still couldn't bring myself to clean out. About a man's not a machine, Wes. You can't just keep him running. She didn't fill the quiet parts with comfort. She just let them sit, which is a rarer kindness than people realize. What about you? I said finally. Danny says you're home with your mom most days. The light in her face dimmed slightly. Mom had a stroke 2 years ago. Left her side weak. She can't be alone for long. She turned her water glass a slow quarter turn. Danny had Tom and the baby. Somebody had to. It made sense for it to be me. That's a lot to carry. "It's my mom," she said simply. Like that settled it. I drove her home. We sat in the truck outside her mother's house, porch light on, neither of us in a hurry. "Thank you," she said. "I forget sometimes that I'm a whole person and not just a schedule." She looked over. "I had a good time. Tell Danny she won her dare." "She didn't win anything," I said. "I did." She looked at me a second longer than she had to, then got out. "I called Danny before I'd even pulled away." "Well," she said, "how bad was it?" "It wasn't bad." "What does it wasn't bad mean exactly?" "It means I'm going to ask her out again, if that's all right with you." Danny went quiet long enough I thought the call dropped. Then she said, in a voice I didn't recognize from her, soft, almost careful, "Yeah, Wes, that's all right with me." I didn't think anything of it at the time. I should have. The summer had a rhythm I hadn't had in 3 years. Tuesdays and Thursdays mostly. I'd close the garage and drive over with whatever beer was left in the fridge. Nora would have food going. Not elaborate, just real. Something on the stove, the window open. Lillian at the kitchen table with a crossword she'd been working on since Tuesday. It felt like nothing. It felt like everything. I fixed the porch steps one Saturday without being asked. Found the rotten board by stepping on it wrong. Came back Monday morning with lumber before Nora was up. She found it when she came out for coffee and stood looking at it for a moment. "You didn't have to do that," she said. "I was passing by." She looked at me. "Wes, you live 12 minutes away." "On the way." She almost smiled. Went back inside without saying anything else. I heard her laugh once from the kitchen, short and quiet, and that was enough for the whole morning. Lillian cornered me a week later. Nora was on the phone with a doctor's office. Lillian put her good hand on the armrest of my chair and leaned in like she had a secret. "She used to sing when she cooked," she said, "before all this. Since you started coming, she started again." She sat back like that settled something. I didn't know what to say to that, so I went and found something else to fix. We saw each other all that summer. Neither of us was built for fast. I'd close the garage and drive over, sit on their porch with Nora and Lillian while the evening went. Sometimes I'd fix things around the house, the screen door, the railing, a back step that gave a little. "You don't have to do that," Nora said. "I don't know how to sit still in a house without working on it." Which was true, and also a lie. I kept finding reasons. Lillian liked me. She'd been a sharp woman before the stroke. Still was, just slower with the words. One evening while Nora was in the kitchen, she put her good hand on my arm and said clear and slow, "She's the best of us, you know that? Best of us, and she thinks she's the spare." She looked toward the kitchen. "Don't let her think that." I told her I wouldn't. I meant it. I sat on the porch for a while after she went in. Lillian was already asleep. The house was quiet. The porch light stayed on. I thought about what Lillian had said. The best of us. And she thinks she's the spare. There's a particular kind of person who believes their worth is in their usefulness. Who learned early that needing things was dangerous and giving things was safe. Who got so good at being the background that they stopped expecting to be the foreground. I knew that kind of person. I was one. I sat there long enough that a moth found the porch light and circled it. Then I drove home and didn't go straight to bed. I went to the garage instead, turned on one light, sat in my father's chair in the back office and didn't do anything for about 20 minutes. Some nights that was enough. One evening near the end of July, Nora drove out to the garage at closing time. She'd never come there before. I was under a hood when I heard her truck, and I came out wiping my hands and found her standing in the open bay door with the last of the daylight behind her. "Mom's with Danny tonight," she said. I had a whole free evening, and I realized I didn't know what to do with one. She looked around the shop, the tools on the pegboard, the calendar 2 years behind, the back office with the light off. "So this is it, Carter and Son. This is it." She walked the length of the shop slowly, stopped at the office door and looked in at my father's desk, papers still where he'd left them. "You kept it exactly the way he left it. I keep telling myself I'll go through it." "Don't," she said, "not until you want to." She turned and looked at me. "I understand keeping a room the way someone left it. I've got 3 years of my own life in a closet I never open." I didn't know yet how literally she meant that, but I heard the weight under it, and I didn't reach for it. I pulled 2 stools off the wall, and we sat in the open bay as the light went, and she talked more than I'd ever heard her talk. Told me what it was like to be the quiet sister. How she'd learned young that her job was to make sure the room kept running, the dishes, the rides, the appointments nobody else remembered. How somewhere along the way she'd stopped expecting anyone to look at her, because being seen meant being asked for something, and she was already giving everything she had. And then you sat down beside me at a party, she said, and said I was the most interesting person there. I almost didn't believe you. That small, dry smile. Still not sure I do. But I drove all the way out here on my one free night to sit in a garage with you. So apparently some part of me wanted to find out. You're the most interesting person there, I said. I'll keep saying it until you believe it. She looked at me in the half-dark. You might have to say it a while. I've got time, I said. What I didn't know yet was what Nora had been keeping from all of us. I found out in late August. By accident, the way you find out the things people most want hidden. I'd come to fix the gutter. Nora had stepped out for her mother's prescription. Lillian asked me to grab a sweater from the hall closet. On the shelf, under a folded blanket, an envelope had slid half out, a college seal, a single word on the letterhead. I shouldn't have looked. I looked. An acceptance letter. Nursing program. 2 states away. The paper soft at the folds from being taken out and put back too many times. 4 years old. Clipped to it. A letter dated that spring. The program saying her deferred place had been held as long as they could hold it. The final term to claim it was this coming January. After that, the offer was gone. I stood in that hallway holding 4 years of a person's life in my hands. When Nora came home, I was on the porch step with the envelope beside me. I hadn't hidden it. Hiding it felt like the start of exactly what my father had warned me about. She saw it and stopped at the bottom of the steps. You weren't supposed to find that. I know. Your mom asked me to get a sweater. I'm sorry. I held it out. Nursing school, 4 years ago. You never went. She came up and sat beside me and took it and held it in her lap. Mom had her stroke 3 weeks before I was supposed to leave. There wasn't a decision. There was just what needed doing. She ran her thumb along the worn fold. I called and deferred. They held the spot. I told myself it was just a delay. Her voice stayed level. I could hear what it cost. You never told Danny. She'd have moved heaven and earth to take it off me. She already had Tom and the baby. I couldn't make my staying her debt. And January, I said. This is the last chance. She nodded. After January the door closes. A small, tired laugh. I've made my peace with it. It was a different life. It belonged to a different girl. Here's where the man I used to be would have said the easy thing. Stay, let it go. I just found you. The last thing I wanted was a door opening 2 states away, but I heard my father. You can't keep a man running by chaining the wheels. You love somebody, you make sure their tank's full, and you let them drive. It didn't belong to a different girl, I said. It belongs to you. It's been in a closet 4 years because you're the only one in this family who decided your own life was the thing you were allowed to give away. She turned to look at me. Wes, I can't leave my mother. You're not the only person who can love your mother. I held her eyes. Danny would carry her share, so would Tom, so would I. You've never let us because you decided a long time ago that you were the spare, and the spare doesn't get to need anything. I took her hand. I didn't fall for the woman who's home every night by 6. I fell for the woman who'd steady a stranger to her car when nobody was watching. That woman was supposed to be a nurse. I think she still wants to be. Her eyes filled. If I go, I lose you. You won't lose me. I looked at her. I've been waiting 3 years to want something again. I can wait a while longer for you to come home a nurse. Cedar Hollow isn't going anywhere. The garage isn't going anywhere. And neither am I. She started to cry, quietly, the way she did everything. You're supposed to ask me to stay. That's how it goes. That's what people do. My dad told me that's exactly what people do, I said, and that it's exactly how you lose them. I went to Danny the following week, asked Nora's permission first. I sat at Danny's kitchen table and told her what her sister had been carrying for 4 years. I watched it land. I watched my loud, fearless best friend go completely still. Then she put her face in her hands. She got in, Danny said, 4 years ago. And she let me think she just didn't want to go. She looked up. I moved away for 2 years for Tom's job. I moved away and she never said a word because she didn't want me to feel she couldn't finish it. She didn't want it to be a debt, I said. She wanted you to have your life clean. Danny cried at her own kitchen table for the first time I'd seen since we were kids. Then she wiped her face and got the look I'd known my whole life, the same look she'd had right before she punched a kid twice her size in 5th grade. She's going in January, Danny said. If I have to drive her there myself, Mom's mine too. It's about time I remembered that. Danny found me at the garage a week after Nora left. She didn't call first, just showed up Tuesday morning while I was deep in the undercarriage of a customer's sedan. I heard her heels on the concrete and knew before I saw her. She called me last night, Danny said. She sounds different. Good different, I said. Terrified different, but yeah, good. She sat on the stool Nora used to sit on, looked around the shop. She told me about the acceptance letter. I didn't say anything. I moved away for 2 years, Danny said, for Tom's job. I had no idea. She was looking at the calendar 2 years behind on the wall. She let me go and never said a word, because she didn't want me to feel like she was owed. No, I said, she didn't want it to be a debt. Danny was quiet. Then, you know what the worst part is? I asked her once, the spring after Mom's stroke. I said, Nora, do you ever feel like you missed out on something? She said, missed out on what? This is my life. She looked at me. I believed her. She believed it too, I said. That's the thing. She'd convinced herself by then. Danny stood up, picked up a wrench off the bench and set it back down for no reason. You did good, she said, making her go. She did good, I said. I just said the true thing. Danny left without saying goodbye, which meant she was about to cry and didn't want me to see it. I went back under the car and gave her the courtesy of not watching her go. What happened over the next few months none of us could have planned. Danny moved Lillian into a downstairs room of her own house. Tom built a ramp. They worked out a schedule. Danny most days, and Aid 3 afternoons a week. Me on weekends doing whatever needed a wrench or a strong back. It wasn't one person carrying everything in silence anymore. It was a family finally sharing the weight the way Nora had let no one share it for 4 years. In January, I drove Nora to nursing school myself. Cold, bright morning. She sat in the passenger seat with a duffel bag and the soft worn envelope, and she was terrified, and she was lit up from the inside in a way I hadn't seen. At the dormitory, we stood by the truck a long time. What if I can't do it, she said. What if I forgot how to be the girl who wanted things? You didn't forget, I said. You just put her in a closet, go let her out. I kissed her in the cold with her whole new life in front of her. Your tank's full, I said, go drive. She laughed and cried at the same time. Then she went. The next 2 years were long, I won't pretend otherwise. We talked every night. I drove the 4 hours when I could. She came home on breaks. There were stretches I missed her so much. The garage felt as empty as it had the year my father died. But it was a different empty, the empty of someone coming back, not someone gone for good. The garage was quieter that winter than I'd expected. Not bad quiet, different quiet, the quiet of something waiting rather than something ended. I called her every night at 9. She called me when she couldn't sleep, which was often those first few months. We talked about small things mostly, what she'd learned that day, a patient who'd reminded her of Lillian, whether Cedar Hollow had gotten the frost yet. One night in November she called at 11 and said, tell me something about the garage. What kind of thing? Anything. I just want to hear it. So I told her about a '67 pickup that had come in that week. Original engine. Owner had kept it running with a combination of skill and stubbornness for nearly 60 years. I described it the way my father used to describe things. The sound of it, the specific weight of those parts in your hands, the satisfaction of something built to last actually lasting. She was quiet through the whole thing. Then, keep going. So I did. I talked about that truck for 40 minutes. By the end I could hear her breathing slow into sleep. I held the phone for a while after, then set it down. The garage was quiet, but it was the right kind. The hardest night came 2 months in, past 11. Phone rang, and when I answered she was crying, really crying, the kind she never let anyone hear. I can't do this, Wes. What happened? Failed a pharmacology exam. There's a girl in my cohort who's 19 and looks at me like I'm someone's mother who wandered into the wrong building. I gave up everything to be here and I'm not even good at it. A pause. I should come home. Mom needs me. I sat up in the dark and didn't say what wanted to come out. Yes, come home. I miss you. Come home. That was the easy thing. That was the chain on the wheels. You failed one exam because pharmacology is hard and it was your second month. Did the 19-year-old pass it? No, she admitted. Nobody passed. The professor's curving it. So you're not the oldest one in the room. You're the bravest one in the room. You're the only one who waited 4 years and gave up a whole life to get to that desk. And you're going to throw it away over one curved exam because a teenager made a face at you. She laughed despite herself. Your mom is fine. Danny's got her. I've got her. The only person in this family who isn't allowed to quit on Nora, I said, is you. You quit on yourself for 4 years. You don't get to do it on month 2. I sat in the dark after that call for a long time. The house had the specific quiet of a Wednesday night in January. No traffic, no wind, just the furnace cycling on and off. I'd gotten used to that quiet. 3 years of it before she came along. I'd thought I was fine with it. I hadn't been fine with it. I just hadn't known what I was missing. I went to the garage, turned on the single bay light, stood at the bench and looked at a carburetor I was rebuilding and didn't touch it. The sign above the door, Carter and Son. My father looking down at me the same way he always had. Not with disappointment, not with pity, just with the patient expression of a man who already knew the answer and was waiting for me to catch up. A man's not a machine, Wes. You've got to let him go somewhere. I put the light off and went back inside. She was quiet a long time. Then, say the thing. The garage thing. Your tank's full, I said. Go drive. Go drive, she repeated quietly, and I could hear her settling. She passed the class, never mentioned coming home again, made the dean's list every term after that. Of course she did. The woman who'd run a household and nursed her mother for 4 years found nursing school demanding but never overwhelming. She'd been doing the hardest part of it her whole life. They just gave her a license for it. She came home for Christmas. First time since January. I picked her up at the bus station in Cedar Hollow on a Thursday evening. She'd refused to let me drive to the school and back, said it was too far in the dark. She was thinner. Her hair was different, pulled back the way she wore it when she was running between things. She had a small, confident look that hadn't been there when she left. Not loud, just settled, like someone who'd been tested and found out they were capable. She stood on the curb with her duffel bag and looked at me for a long second. Hi, she said. Hi, that was all. But she walked straight over and put her head against my shoulder and stood there for a minute, not crying, not saying anything. Just being somewhere she didn't have to explain herself. I put my arm around her and didn't move until she was ready. Later that night at her mother's house, Lillian asleep, Danny gone home, the kitchen quiet, she sat at the table and looked at her hands for a while. I think I'm going to be good at this, she said. Not proud, just honest, like someone reporting a fact they hadn't been sure of. I know, I said. I was scared I'd forgotten how to want things. And, she looked up, turns out wanting things is a muscle. You don't lose it. You just have to start using it again. I looked at her across Lillian's kitchen table, the woman who'd spent 4 years convincing herself she was the spare, learning, exam by exam, long shift by long shift, that she wasn't. Your tank's full, I said quietly. She smiled. First real one I'd seen since she'd come back. Go drive. The second year was easier than the first. She still called every night, but the calls were different, less desperate, more like checking in. She told me about patience now with the quiet confidence of someone who'd found what she was built for. A man recovering from a stroke who reminded her of Lillian. A woman her age who was terrified, and Nora knew exactly what to say to her because she'd been terrified in the same specific way not long before. I think I'm good at the scared ones, she told me one night. The ones who think they can't. Of course you are, I said. Why of course? Because you were one of them. She was quiet a moment. Past tense, I said. She came home every few months. Each time something had shifted. Not dramatically, just incrementally. The way a person looks when they've been spending time becoming who they always were. I showed her the garage one Sunday, really showed her, not just a tour but a proper walkthrough. Every corner, the tools my father had organized 40 years ago that I'd kept exactly as he'd left them. The back office I'd finally, quietly, alone, on a Tuesday night in February, started going through. Not finished, just started. She stood in the office doorway and looked at the desk. You moved some things. A little. How did it feel? I thought about it. Like the first February after a hard winter, I said. Cold still, but different cold. She nodded. She understood that. She'd had her own closet to open. You should put a chair in here, she said, for when you need to think. I put one in the following week. The week after that, I drove 4 hours to see her and asked her to marry me in the parking lot of her dormitory, which was not romantic and was exactly right. She said yes before I'd finished the sentence. You didn't let me finish, I said. Wes, I've been waiting 2 years for you to ask. I was waiting until the contract was done. What contract? The one where I was sending you somewhere and waiting. Felt wrong to ask while you were still going. She looked at me. So you waited. You were driving, I said. I wasn't going to call you back. She laughed, real and sudden, and it filled that parking lot the way it filled every room she was in. Your tank's full, I said. I know, she said. I drove. She came home a nurse. The hospital 2 towns over hired her before she'd finished her last rotation. Lillian got better care from her own daughter than any facility could have given. Danny and Nora became closer than they'd been since they were girls. The old guilt finally aired out. Nora and I were married the following autumn, in the field behind the garage, under the sign that still says Carter and Son. Danny stood beside her sister. Lillian walked Nora down the aisle herself, slow on her cane, refusing the chair we'd set out because she'd decided months ahead that she would do it standing and there was no arguing with her. At the reception, Danny stood to give a toast. She looked at me, then at her sister. Then she said the thing I should have understood 3 years before. Everybody thinks I dared Wes to take Nora out because I thought it would be funny, she said. It wasn't a joke. I'd watched my sister give her whole life away one quiet day at a time. And I'd watched my best friend wall himself up in a garage after his dad passed. Her voice broke. These are the 2 best people I know, and they'd both decided they weren't allowed to be happy. She took a breath. So I dared the only 2 people stubborn enough to need it. I never expected it to work. I just couldn't watch them both disappear. She raised her glass. To the best dare I ever made, and to my sister, who finally let us carry her the way she carried all of us for so long. I've thought a lot about that word, dare. For a long time I thought a dare was about winning, proving you weren't a coward, calling somebody's bluff. That's not what Danny's dare was. A real dare isn't about winning. It's somebody who loves you seeing the wall you've built around your life and refusing to let you keep living behind it. It's a hand over yours on a seized bolt, telling you not to force it, just work it loose. Danny didn't dare me to take her sister to dinner. She dared 2 frightened people to want something again. The most frightening thing, the thing neither of us expected, wasn't that we fell in love. It's that we let ourselves be carried. After all those years of deciding the most we could do was keep ourselves running alone in our separate empty rooms, we found out we were never machines at all. We were just 2 people who'd forgotten there was somewhere we were supposed to go. The sign out front still says Carter and Son. It always will. But when I lock up at night, the house I drive home to isn't empty. There's a nurse asleep with a textbook open on her chest, and a porch where her mother once told me that the best of us are usually the ones who think they're the spare. My father was right about engines, and right about people. You can't keep someone running by chaining the wheels. You love them. You fill the tank. And then you're brave enough to let them drive. And if you've loved them right, lucky enough, the road they choose comes back to you. If you've ever been loved by someone who let you go, not because they didn't want you, but because they wanted you to become who you were supposed to be, you already know what this story is really about. It's not about a dare. It's about 2 people who had forgotten they were allowed to want things, and one loud, stubborn woman who refused to let them keep forgetting. Your tank's full, go drive. 4 words. I said them the night she almost quit. I said them the morning I dropped her off. I said them every time the distance felt too long and the phone calls felt too short. She came home. She always was going to. Some loves are like that, quiet enough to wait, strong enough to let go, patient enough to trust that the road they're on circles back. If this story stayed with you, if you know someone like Nora, someone who gave their own life away so quietly nobody noticed, then you know why these stories matter. Subscribe to Whispering Porch Stories. We're here every week with a new story about ordinary people and the love that finds them when they've stopped looking. Leave a like if Nora's story moved you, and in the comments, tell me, have you ever had someone dare you into something that changed your life? We'd love to hear it. See you next time.